Welcome to Guns Contractors video. First one of 2026 on a chilly morning. I mean, it's the Costerdale, Hampshire here, but you know it's cold when I'm wearing trousers. So yeah, there's a couple of weeks in January where the shorts are a little bit ambitious. But anyway, Flail day. Now, some of you have seen this on my Instagram page if you follow me at Ollie Guns. And you'll see sometimes these things that I buy and, you know, got to sort of try out a little bit before we actually do a video. But this is its first proper job, and actually the job I bought this machine for. What we've got to do is clear all of these brambles. There's like a ditch in here. We've got quite a way to go down here, and then we've got to go down all the side of over there as well. So there's probably nearly a couple of 100 meters. Now, some of the stuff is a bit big. There is like plenty of bracken and brambles and stuff, but I got a lot of willow in here as well. That's probably going to be a bit big. There's going to be a bit of chainsawing, no doubt as well. But the idea was to flail as much as possible, cut what we've got to cut, and basically get ourselves back to see this ditch line again, because I don't know, there's some issues with water flow and flooding and stuff, and if we can't even see the ditch, we can't maintain it. So got 3 days of flailing to do. Now, there have been lots of comments on the pictures, and sometimes that's been shared on as well by other people, about flails on backhoes, and it's not going to be as good as a tractor hedge cutter and all of this stuff. You know what? You're not wrong. I'm not looking to go tractor hedge cutting with it. There is, and I've had a little play, some possibilities with dual drive now and flailing, and I've chosen a certain spec, which I'll talk you through in a second, to try and mitigate some of the problems that you get with running a backhoe and trying to flail at the same time. However, didn't buy it for that, bought it more really for static kind of flailing in one position. Then of course with dual drive, you can just knock it forward, move very quickly, flail again. That's how I plan on doing this job. I'm not going to be going up and down, up and down, up and down. To be honest, whilst the ground's quite frozen, I think you're just going to make a mess doing that. And of course, that's all you can do with a tractor. So in some ways, an excavator is a little bit more maneuverable, especially with four-wheel steer. It's a little bit more manipulative with the arm. I've got good reach. So I don't know, we'll see, won't we? Or of course I'll blow it up, and that'll make a great video as well for you guys, and it'll be sad times for me, because I am running this thing probably at its limit, and there's a case drain issue as well. Shouldn't we? I've been all the way through this and a lot of research. I've spoken to a lot of people who have run flails and backhoes. I'll explain all in a second. Let me talk through the setup that I've got. So under the snow here is a Femac T7. Now I went for the 125. That gives me a 1 meter 250 of cutting width. It's actually about 450 in total length, because obviously there's a little bit of extra gubbins at the end here. I got it from Digbits. I got a couple of prices on this actually, and Digbits weren't the cheapest, but I do know that I'll get great service and backup out of them, and I've had, you know, quite a few attachments from them before. They were able to dispatch it quickly, came before Christmas, all of which was great. And they've also up-spec'd the motor inside here, and I'll explain why. So, JCB 3 and 4CX both have the same hydraulic capacity. You'll get in the standard mode, you know, sort of like full fat mode, you'll get 130 litres a minute, 125, something like that, out of the auxiliary pipes. So we've also got flow and return up here for those not that familiar with hydraulics, and you get 125 litres going round that every minute. Now that runs this motor. Now motors can only take so much flow, and that's too much flow for the T7 flail. This is a flail for I think 5-6 ton machines, that kind of class, and of course this really is in the 9-10 ton class, certainly, you know, in terms of hydraulically, maybe even as good as some of the more basic sort of 12-13 ton machines. So it really, this flail is too small for this machine. However, the reason we've run it like that is so that we can run it in its eco mode. So this new EH machine has got two modes with it. There is an eco mode which drops the revs down, and I'm told runs a different pump, I believe, but either way it drops it down, and I only get 80 litres a minute out of the hydraulics in the eco mode setting. So my thinking was, the problem with a backhoe There's no creep speed at all in these things. And in fact, in dual drive, you're stuck in second gear. So it's a bit of a shame. I'd like to see first gear, to be honest, JCB. But anyway, for some reason, we can't do that. We've got second gear with dual drive, and that will travel along a little bit too fast. So that's an issue when you're trying to cut and move, you know, kind of tractor style as such. And that's a problem. So I thought, do you know what, if I ran it, I want to run it a tick over because I don't really want to be fighting the brakes and holding it on the brakes to try and slow it down too much. Run it a tick over, I get full fat flow to the Flail, 80 litres a minute, that's the maximum this will take. It's got the 30cc motor in it. I'm essentially on top of the job, aren't I, Flail-wise, versus the machine, which is essentially just ticking over really, not really doing a huge amount. And then when I stop, I put it up to 1400 RPM, I've got like maximum power and flow to the Flail, whereas with the bigger Flails, which the other compromise with that is weight, I think this thing weighs 200 and something kilos. It said it somewhere. Well, it actually says 500 and actually it's 500. I'm sure it wasn't quite that. Oh no, wait, here we go. I don't know why it's got two lots of weights. 250 kilos. I thought it was around that sort of number. And anyway, the machine handles it absolutely lovely. It'll actually send it all the way out to the side, even when you've got the king post set one side, all the way out to the side and not fall over. You do have to be a bit careful, but it won't fall over with the legs up, which is perfect. You know, we don't want to be putting the legs down every time to operate this. We want to be working free on wheels, just holding ourselves on the foot brake, flailing an area and then moving with dual drive. That's my plan. You're obviously going to see if that works or not. So yeah, that's the idea. That's why I've gone with the T7 Flail. I could have run the T9, which would have been the one up, but I'd have lost cutting width to try and save weight, and I wouldn't have been quite so on top of the job. I mean, there's a lot of options with the T9. You can fit mulching blades to it. You can do hammers, which is what I've got on this particular Flail here. But it's a much bigger unit, it's taller, it's bulkier, it's a little bit narrower in theory on this, but this tucks up lovely on the back end, which I'll show you in a bit. So anyway, enough talking about why I've gone with this and what the Flail is. I'm going to get into this job, and then when we've done a bit, because I just want to get a feel for it myself, we'll keep you up to date. So you join us on day 2 and making really good progress actually. I've been very happy with how it's performing. I mean, this is some of the lighter kind of material that I've had to work with. But I'll show you some of the chunkier bits that I've also been at. And it's, yeah, even the willow, which is a tough wood, isn't it? Because it's so stringy. It does seem to chomp quite nicely. Now, I've learnt a couple of things which I thought sort of might be the case so far, but it doesn't seem to be holding it back particularly. So obviously, you know, you've got a limit with an excavator, how much oil you've got going around. You've got to move a set amount of rams around, obviously to slew and move the arm about. You've got to obviously power the Flail. The Flail's a very, very power hungry thing, and it kind of wants maximum flow all the time, which was partly the reason I went for the slightly smaller Flail, although the weight has been absolutely lovely with this setup. I'm very pleased with kind of how that's gone, which has of course been another advantage of going for the slightly smaller Flail. But it does lose, and you can't hear it when you're in here. In fact, it's a lovely quiet operating environment really, with all the windows shut. But yesterday in the afternoon it got a bit warmer, and I had one of my side windows open, and you can hear the Flail just starting to run out of well, not run out, but it loses a little bit of flow when you're moving the arm around, particularly extending in and out. That must all be on the same pump or circuit. I think these machines only run one big pump, and then it's all split in the valve block. So yeah, I guess there's always going to be a disadvantage. I kind of knew that might be the case, and I mean, I've never run one on a traditional excavator, but I'd imagine it's probably the same there as well. It cuts like brambles, grass, all of that sort of stuff absolutely fine. There's no issue, even with it sort of not running out of flow, but like, it's slightly reduced flow. You can move around like I'm doing now and flail all of this, and it doesn't bother it. When it comes to trying to get into some of the thicker material, then you need a bit more flow. So it's just something that you have to think about when you're working, I guess. If you come against something that's a little bit thicker, a bigger shrub or something, you just need to kind of stop, let the flail power up fully, and then work into it slowly. But you can't have everything, and I always knew there'd be some compromises, and I will discuss. I'll try and find a bit where I can sort of drive along and do a bit of dual driving and flailing at the same time, and explain the limitations there as well, because it will do it. It's just, again, you're sharing that flow with moving the arm. The machine's trying to creep along a little bit too quick, really, and there are only so many things you can do. However, this machine, or this flail attachment, really was bought to increase the amount of work I can do. I had this job coming up. I thought, well, sometimes it's not going to pay for it, this particular job on its own, but you showcase what you can do, what you've got, and then you can win more work from that, can't you? It's always the same when I bought the tilt rotator. The people didn't know the benefits of the tilt rotator until I got one, really. In fact, on the mini machines, they were kind of seen as a bit of a waste of time. Hopefully, I've kind of proved that isn't the case. Certainly worked out well for my business. So yeah, sometimes you got to take a punt on stuff and have a go. And actually, overall, honestly, I've been really, really pleased with how it's done. And I've worked my way into some areas which I really should have filmed. But when you're sort of just trying to get a hang of the machine and see how things go, that was really quite impressive. Really, what it's done. The difference it's made in that sort of short period of time. So I have to say, the ability to even just knock it forward now in dual drive, I haven't had to spin the seat, stick it back on the handbrake, stick it in neutral, the revs pick up again, and off you go. That has been really, really good on this, and I've kind of worked my way into areas with the flail, kind of cutting as I go, because of course you can't see what's on the floor and you don't know what you've got. Pretty much had the legs up most of the time. I had a couple of areas where I needed a bit more stability, and I just stuck one leg down. But yeah, it's doing well. And to be honest, I kind of thought I'd need 3 days. Maybe I will to do a really nice job. But it's going even better than I kind of anticipated it doing. So great reach. Even working over these fences, you've got to be a little bit careful not to smash the fences up. But it's working really, really well. You just sort of work your way along slowly and flail into the ditch. I'll actually get some of this, I think, from the other side in a minute, because I can go around there. Because the problem is I can't get my boom any lower than that, so or I'll hit the fence rail. So it's not ideal. And of course, don't want to take yellow paint off the girl, do we? Bless her. So yeah, I'll probably just flail this last bit from another position. But that's the great thing with this. You can set yourself up from a different angle and have a go. At least we've managed to work our way over the fence, which is sort of done 80% of the work I've got to do, and then I can tidy it up on the other side. Frozen ground is helping, because obviously these machines in the winter they will find the soft spots, but we haven't had so much of that trouble. So this is the area we started in yesterday. There was a whole load of brambles and stuff here, and then some bigger willows down here. I've just sort of munched, I don't know, as much as I dare. It says it'll go up to sort of 80 mil, and maybe I could get these down a little bit more, but we'll see. Worst case, I can always chop them down with a chainsaw, or even rip the stumps out, because to be honest, we don't really want these things growing back. So, but it's taken all the vegetation, which was like way up here before, so that's gone. I think that's gone really well. This is all now ready to actually, you know, be able to get in and clear the ditch out a bit. Got to get that root down there as well, out by the culvert. There's a tree root growing right in there. Anyway, do all that with a bucket. And then this side, I took a bit of fence out over here, and yeah, I mean, it's completely changed. You couldn't see any of this, and we've managed to get right in here and clear it all away. So, and then I've gone all the way down the side here as well. So yeah, made some good progress. Next plan is to get ourselves down the back end of sort of round here. That could be a bit more tricky. Yeah, not quite as much access there, so we'll have to see how we get on with that. But that's the next plan. Yeah, been pleased with it so far. There's a couple of things, as I've said, that you know, you kind of have to let the thing spool up a little bit if you do too much sort of moving of the arm. But yeah, she's doing all right. Blades seem in okay condition as well, which is good. Because obviously, you know, you want to get a good few hours out of those. It depends what you hit, doesn't it? You know, you dig too much ground up, or you're whacking into this heavier stuff, then they're going to take a bit more of a beating than if you're just doing brambles and grass and things. So yeah, this willow is particularly tough actually. It's not so bad on the silver birches. It chomps them up nicely, but yeah, the willow's just so stringy and it splits down its length and things. Anyway, we'll tidy that up in a bit. Yeah, just want to keep flailing for now, but yeah, looking good. So I just thought I'd show you what it's like on a little bit of the sort of tougher stuff. Got some more willow here, probably up to 50 mil, 60 mil thick probably, and it munches through it sort of fine really. I was, as always, manipulating the flail to get the pieces into it is sort of most of the problem, but the great thing with an excavator arm is that it's very, very easy to maneuver with obviously the two controls. Yes, it'd be amazing if you could ever make one run under a tilt rotator, because you could pretty much manipulate the flail to attack any sort of angle of piece. But I mean, there's an argument to say really this is starting to be mulcher work, and if there was many more sort of meters of this, then maybe that would be the better tool. But you know, it says it'll cut up to 80 mil. That's kind of what I've found, certainly throughout this process so far. So, you know, can't knock it at all. It is a little bit more awkward because we've got this fence to work over. I've had a chat with the parish. That may well go in the future, because I just think it's going to be a lot easier to actually maintain this ditch line, and arguably the fence is starting to rot and is only going to need replacing anyway. Sort of really, what's it doing? You know, it's not really doing a lot of job. Be a lot easier to maintain without it there. Anyway, for now it's there, and we're trying to keep it. So that stops us using a kind of skid steer type machine with a mulcher on, which would work really well on this kind of material. But obviously the fence in the way, it's not quite so easy. So yeah, just being a little bit more careful, going a little bit slower, just making sure the arm, doesn't end up smashing the fence up, which is very, very easy to do. I've had a bit of a thought actually on things generally, and how I've kind of found flailing, because I've done this now. It's my third day on this work, and we're going to complete everything we need to. And kind of my thoughts on it, you know, particularly I've done a bit of tractor hedge cutting before. That's the traditional kind of way we would cut like hedges and things around the farm. And you know, yes, you can clear land with them as well. They're not quite so easy to work. Generally, they've sort of, some of the smarter ones have got a kind of one jog dial joystick that you can use, and that is a lot better. But you know, they're quite expensive, those kind of cutters. Most of the ones I've used have had 3 or 4 levers that you kind of have to manipulate, and you're looking over your shoulder, and it's not the easiest. So I have found the excavator flail, you know, on the backhoe has been a very, it's an enjoyable day. You know, you're facing the attachment. It's not very fatiguing. It's nice and quiet in here. The machine more than handles it weight wise. You know, we're operating legs up here, as I have for most of the time really, only when I've been on some slightly more unstable ground and I kind of lose my confidence. How far the machine will go, of course, is another thing, but anyway, you know, can't be safe, better to be safe than sorry. So yeah, I found it very enjoyable. Visibility is excellent in the backhoe. You are sort of almost on top of the job, and again, I am flailing mostly on the ground here, so you know, I'm kind of looking down. That traditionally in tractors is hard. The mud guards are generally a lot squarer in them, I find, and they're a bit harder to see, especially kind of close up to the machine. Whereas, you know, whilst I do knock JCB for the inefficiency of their mud guards, especially for people that like to keep their machines a bit cleaner, you have to say they have kind of thought quite a lot about the visibility down quite near the machine. And that's, you know, really always a compromise, isn't it, I guess. More mud guards are great, but it does reduce visibility ultimately. So I still think they could do a better job. Anyway, I won't get caught up on mud guards. So the flail's been fine. I haven't run, as you know, I haven't run a case drain. That was recommended by Dig Bits. It hasn't been a problem so far. I haven't stalled it out. Maybe if I was really working it hard, I'm kind of being quite easy with it really. But I guess maybe if I stalled it out, that might be where the case drain would come more into effect. But it's not, you know, it's not a massive hose that it even has on the motor to operate the case drain. So it's not like it needs an awful lot, but JCB did tell me they reckon this machine's got a back pressure of 10 bar, which is a lot. I actually am not sure that's the case all the time. I think that might be the case when you've got your bi-directional pipe work going and it's running through the extra valve. But you know, when you switch it, it should be running virtually straight to tank anyway. The problem is, you know, you've got filters, hydraulic filter. There's a return filter on this machine that I know of, and you know, that's all good, and you need them, but it adds, well, it adds back pressure, sadly. So that's a problem. Now, maybe I haven't had an issue with it because it's a smaller flail. I'm running this machine in its eco mode, which gives me 80 litres to the end. I haven't tried it in the full fat mode. Maybe that might solve some of the other issues I've had. Not issues, but just some of the, you do lose a tiny bit of flail speed when you move the arm. Now, as you can see, I'm moving the arm and munching some stuff there. It's probably 25-30 mil, and it's not a problem. So we're not losing a lot of power to the flail, but if you open the windows, it's a bit scary to do, but you know, I had my side windows cracked earlier before I started filming. You can hear the flail kind of whirring up and down, or more whirring up really, as you work it, particularly when you extend like that. That does slow it down. So if you're munching something a bit thicker, a bit heavier, you just have to go a little bit slower with the arm. Obviously, dropping the arm onto it doesn't require so much hydraulic power, so it keeps the power to the flail. But you know, this machine wasn't designed to be a flailing animal. Tractor hedge cutters are. That's why you have a PTO. It's providing full power to that flail at all times. That's one of the main advantages of a tractor cutter. Now, there are other ways you can do it. For example, I think the Hydra Dig is hydrostatic, and therefore you can keep revs up, power to flail, and then kind of creep along at a slower speed. I mean, essentially, you've only got so much oil, right? So even that, I suspect, will lose some hydraulic power in some circumstances. But having not operated and driven one, difficult to say compared to this. But this is by no means bad. I mean, you can see I'm moving the arm around, certainly as fast as you would want to for this kind of material, and it's munching it. It's not bothering it. But that is one of the things I've found. You know, you just have to be aware of that. And of course, you want good rotor speed to get good mulching, because if you don't have that, then essentially it doesn't work at its full capacity. So, and that would be how you would stall it. And if you stall it, again, maybe the case drain would come into play. I was resistant to fitting a case drain despite being kind of advised on it. I'd seen some of the other guys on the Facebook operators group, and people have run flails on backhoes before. I'm by no means the first, but I'd seen them running them, and I think one of them had a case drain, the rest didn't. Other people that have run them quite a while said, no, I never bothered, it was absolutely fine. And other people said, yeah, and I blew my flail up. And you think, oh, okay, well, it's going to be one or the other, isn't it? I decided to take the chance, and it's working for me. This flail's done probably north of 20 hours work now in the last few days on this machine, and yeah, it's still running now. So, you know, we're doing all right. We're doing all right. I don't want to jinx it, but it hasn't been an issue up to this point. And that's all I can really say on it. Whether you should or shouldn't have one or not still remains to be seen. I suspect it would be a good practice to have one. Some of the 8-ton machines, of course, come with a case drain fitted. I know some of the Cats do, for example. You know, great luxury if you can have that. I know a lot of skid steers have that as well for the same reason, really. But yeah, haven't had that problem. Other things to note, really, yeah, as I said, manoeuvrability, visibility is really good with this. I would say better than a tractor, but you know, they're more designed for cutting hedges and things, aren't they? Would I recommend people getting one? Well, if you've got a job for it, then why not? There's no harm in having more attachments, is there? This thing's right up against the fence. It's very difficult to get at. And I do not want to flail with the rotor towards me, because I can just sense that would be death. So yeah, they are an attachment. I'm a big fan of having multiple attachments on machines. I think that's how you show or gain versatility. I think you can get more work like that. This job, even this video, is all about showing what I can do with this machine, and I hope to win more work from that. Is it an attachment that's going to be out all the time? No. Well, obviously there are only certain seasons that you can really do this kind of work anyway. But the parish have been very impressed with what we've done here. I've got some walkers coming down the path, so just hold fire for a minute. They've been very happy with what we've done here, and we can now at least see the ditch, see if we have a problem, and possibly now there's going to be some work in clearing it out, which is no bad thing. That can be a kind of ongoing thing throughout the day, or throughout the year. I don't know. I will show you what I think of it moving, because walking or driving and flailing is a whole nother ball game, and all of the little issues that I've mentioned so far about rotor speed when you move the arm and things obviously are worse when you're trying to drive it at idle, because you don't want the machine to creep along so fast. But this kind of idea of flailing as you go, knocking it forward and moving as I am, is working really, really well for me, and I'm very happy with it. So yeah, that's done. It's done the job that I wanted it to do, and that's good enough for me. Whether we haven't got many hedges to cut really at a little small farm, so it's not exactly its main job. Clearly a tractor hedge cutter is a lot better than that. Having said that, I sold my little tractor to buy this machine, and I don't need a tractor. I can do it with this. To get a sort of comparable flail of the same size, you're probably looking at north of 20 grand for a flail, 1.2 flail like this, on a tractor one. Then you need a tractor. It's got to be probably at least 75 horsepower really to drive one this sort of size. Is it worth it? Just for cutting hedges? If you own a backhoe and you've got a few hedges to do, then yes, it's compromised, but ultimately it'll do it. And you already own that machine, right? Which is kind of the position I'm in. If you already own a tractor and you've got a big farm and you've got loads of hedges to do, well, clearly then you're going to have the need and warrant to have a proper hedge cutting machine, which clearly is going to be better for that. But I honestly don't think a tractor flail would be as good at the kind of work that I'm having to do here, because some of this stuff is quite thick. You've done a lot of wheeling up and down. I think that would have been worse for the ground conditions and created more ruts. And I just think, this has worked out. It's worked out pretty well, this kind of excavator flail idea. And the machine's powering it really well. So I'm overall happy with it. But I will do a little bit of footage. I've got a little area I can go and show you what it's like to drive, because I know people are interested in how does it drive and flail and cut and stuff. So yeah, I'll run through that. Right, it's the question everybody wants to know. Can you dual drive and flail at the same time? Well, you can, but there's some compromises. So you can sort of see, I've tried to set the camera up at the angle you'll be able to see the flail. We got some brambles here, probably 5-6 foot high, and a bit of grass in there. There is some willow further back, but we won't play with that just yet. I'm actually gonna not do this whole length because it just doesn't work for me the way I've got to work this, and I don't want to make a mess on this lawn. But I can at least show you it's a good place to demonstrate what you can and can't do. So obviously the revs pick up when you're not in dual drive, and you can run this at its sort of optimum flail speed and get yourself a nice cut. However, can we drive and flail? Well, let's give it a go. I have played with this a little bit, so I have an idea of how this is going to go. Right, as soon as I knock it into a drive, I lose some flail speed because the revs drop, and I also, as soon as I move the arm, lose any kind of well, not any, but lose some flail flow to the flail whilst I move the arm, which I have said is a little bit of a thing that happens even when you're just driving. The other problem I've got, which you can't see, is that I've got to have one foot on the button to run the flail on the floor, and the other one I've got to have on either the accelerator or the brake. So there's a lot going on here, and I do apologise for my slightly worse than usual presenting style, because I am doing a lot of things here and it's not all that natural, to be honest. You're steering with your fingers, you've got to right foot brake, you can't heel and toe this thing, sadly. It just doesn't really work like that. The brake and the accelerator are too far apart. But you see where you need to. Sometimes you see you can go slow enough because there's enough resistance against the gearbox to be able to get some revs and flail, which of course makes the flail work a lot better because you're putting some revs on it and you're not going too fast. You can control your speed essentially with the accelerator. Now the problem is when you're going downhill and you need to use the brake, because then you can't use the accelerator, you can't get the revs up, and obviously it's more of a problem. So I mean, you can, as you can see, dual drive and flail. I mean, personally for me, I actually don't think it's the most efficient way to operate. Not with the sort of work that I'm trying to do, but it will do it, and it will cut fairly light material, grass, that sort of thing. It'll cut it absolutely fine, even with the compromises, which I have said are something. Now you might say, well, why aren't you driving forwards, Ollie? Swing the arm round and drive yourself forwards. Now that would probably improve the visibility to the flail end. And if I'm being honest, I'm actually just being lazy, because I was already this way round. I need to really be this way round to do the job that I'm doing, because ahead of me are some trees and I'm going to come up against those soon, and I need to be as far back against them as possible. So that's the reason I'm this way round. Just for this demonstration, I didn't really want to be changing everything up just to suit that, but I thought it's something that everyone is asking. Can you drive and flail? Yes, technically you can. It works better uphill because you can rev, but there are compromises. I've said before, I didn't buy this as a tractor hedge cutter. It's not my plan, and actually I find it much easier to sort of stop and cut and flail at the same time, because it's just more efficient, to be honest, for it. And you've got a lot of advantages in doing that. It's not actually that much of a problem to just sit here and flail away as we go. So look, I'll stick the handbrake on, and I can flail around, and I find you're doing a lot less damage to the ground. I've said I think visibility is better. It's really comfortable to operate like this. But obviously for a hedge or something where you're cutting a relatively consistent thing, and therefore you don't need to move the arm too much, driving and flailing is clearly an advantage, and that's where the tractors really come into their own. But this sort of more awkward ground clearance stuff, I don't know, I've been very happy, really happy with how this has performed. And so is my customer, which is what it's about, isn't it? In fact, they've been so happy with it. This is actually a bonus area. I've actually done the area that I set out to do, and I said, look, I've got a couple of hours. At the end of the day, I'll do a bit more for you. Where would you like me to do? So we're actually getting a bit more done as well. Which, I mean, some people might go, "Why, you're crazy doing that? You're essentially burning your own diesel and stuff for that." But honestly, it's just gone really well. And they're going to give me some more work next year from it, aren't they? Or maybe even later this year. But I haven't really got any more time this winter to be doing too much more of this. But it's see, look, I think that's really quite fast. Knock it into forwards, drive yourself forward a bit, stop again, and you're not just creating like massive ruts, which is the key with this, because it's not, you know, it's an amenity bit of grass, not a field. We can't be doing that. I'm getting much better power to the flail like this, and yeah, for me it works a lot better. But yes, you can drive. No, it's not perfect. Clearly it's not as good as a tractor setup. You know what we would really need for that is you'd need a dedicated pump or something to keep the attachment fully running at full speed, no matter what you did with the arm. You definitely want a better gearbox or a different solution to the gearbox. The variable, what do they call the transmission they put in the telehandlers? You know, where it's got the hydrostatic at low speed, and then it steps up to power shift for road speeding and stuff. One of those in the backhoe, I mean, I think just anyway, would be an absolute weapon of a thing. And I'd be surprised if JCB haven't tried that, to be honest. But if they haven't, you should, JCB, because literally stick the telehandler gearbox in one of these and tell me it's not amazing. I don't know what that would add to the price, of course. You know, it is all things built for a price. Not everyone's looking to do silly things like me with flailing and other work. But yeah, there is no doubt that new agricultural telehandler box that they've put in them for the last few years now is a weapon of a thing. You know, that would help, because you could drive it in hydrostatic when you're looking to go really slow, keep better power to the attachment. But you know, it all costs money, doesn't it? And ultimately, how much of this do I do? Would I actually pay for it? I probably would, because I'm that kind of guy, and I like versatility, and I could actually see lots of other applications where that would work. I mean, a simple solution for very, very cheap, free money would be to give us first gear and dual drive. Don't know why we haven't got that. Somebody at JCB, please tell us, because to me that just seems obvious. Why can't we go slower? I get why we don't have first, fourth, you know, fifth and sixth in dual drive. But why can't we have first gear? That to me would help with a lot of jobs. You know, even just moving around sites slowly, or laying out curbs, or whatever you might be doing in dual drive. To me, that's the way to go. Is you know, we need less speed almost. Second gear is just too much. And the other thing I'd like to see out of dual drive is no four-wheel drive as well. You know, optional four-wheel drive, because again, just don't always need it. And when you're working on the road, you definitely don't want it. But anyway, you know, it's a Mark 1, isn't it, the dual drive system? And I think there's a few limitations, but there's a few things that you can always change for like a Mark 2 or an improvement. I've got to say though, it's been fantastic on this job. And could I have done this with the old machine? Of course I could, but there'd have been a whole lot more seat turning, and it just all adds up, doesn't it? It's small things that add up to big, you know, differences in comfort and your day ultimately. But yeah, I've enjoyed this. It's been good. It's been a great job. Customers happy. I'm really happy with it. Expect I'll get slated online, no doubt. But please feel free to follow me on the various platforms. I'm on Instagram and obviously here on YouTube. If you're still watching me at this point, please do hit the subscribe button, because I've got some plans with this machine. I am far from finished with playing with attachments, and yeah, this thing, it cost me a lot of money to buy this machine, and I need it to earn me a lot more money back than it costs. So yeah, hang around if you want to see what I get up to in the next few months and coming years with this, because I think there's an awful lot of potential with the backhoe. In my opinion, she's not dead yet. Certainly not for my business. Anyway, I hope you guys are out there keeping busy, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys.